welcome. Thank you for being here. Oh, Michelle, we love you already. We love the conversations we've been having off camera right now. You are a mum. You have had a massive journey. You've got 3 babies. Your first baby was a stillbirth. And so that was the start of your mothering journey, was having, I guess, that loss to kick you off. And then you've had children from then, and then you've also experienced a miscarriage after the biggest loss that you probably could have experienced as a human, losing, I mean, we've interviewed Nikki and she's lost her girl also, and that's the biggest grief that you can feel as a parent. And there's a lot of dynamics when there's stillbirth involved, which you'll speak about, of how you process that. So do you want to tell us a bit about your story and your journey through motherhood?
Yes, I'd love to. Thanks for having me. So excited. Yeah. So I'm Michelle, like you said. I'm a little bit about me. So I'm born in South Africa, migrated to New Zealand in 2002. I am a pharmacist by profession, so studied at the University of Otago. Cool. Married to an incredible man, Ray. So lovely guy. Yes, lovely guy. We just celebrated our 9th wedding anniversary. Wow. Amazing, yeah. And for the last 6 years, I guess, motherhood journey, the biggest journey, most amazing journey of my life. I consider, so I'm mum of 4, which you mentioned. Yeah. So in 2015, we had our first baby, who we lost. Elijah Samuel, he would be 5 and a bit. The year after, in 2016, we had Zachary Ethan, my rainbow baby, second boy. Wow. And 2017, I had another little boy, Riley Joshua, just a Energizer Bunny little boy. Wow. And then we had the miscarriage last year, June. And now we have a little girl, Michaela Elise, born during lockdown. Beautiful. And so I'm a mum of 4. Yeah. So I parent 1 baby in my heart, in my thoughts, in my dreams, which is our firstborn that we lost. And the 3 little ones that keep me super busy. Yeah. So yeah.
It's amazing. And such a beautiful acknowledgement of how you parent.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, because it is exactly that. I am parenting 2 journeys. Yes. Wow. I'm present in the everyday for the 3 kids that need me, the 3 kids that I'm there for, but I'm also parenting in my heart the other one that I've lost, every day going through things with them, which I'll talk about a little bit more later. But yeah, that's basically my parallel parenting journey that I go through.
Amazing. Wow. That is amazing.
And so with your stillbirth, how many weeks were you, and what was that process in terms of, were you 40 weeks?
Yes. Yeah. So Elijah was my first baby, first baby. And in 2014, while we were doing a Europe tour, got pregnant in Europe. Wow. First baby, the excitement all planned. Yeah. Very non-complicated pregnancy, had good doctors taking care of me. Yeah. I was due at the end of March, had gone on maternity leave, prepping everything for baby, and he was due quite close to Easter. Yeah. So on it was actually Easter Sunday, so Sunday around 2 o'clock in the morning. I'd woken up and he was 5 days late at that point. Yeah. Woke up with labour pains, which, when it's your first, you're like, this is pain, but this is labour pain. Yes, it's so, Yeah. And we were staying with my mum at the moment while our house was getting built. And so during that time, I went into labour. Contractions came on really strong, and you go through so I was 40 weeks and 5 days. You go through ringing your doctor, taking Panadol, trying to rest, which you can't do.
No.
They tell you to
rest, and I'm like, I cannot rest through this. And around 6 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning, we head off to the hospital because just like, I need to go to the hospital. I don't know what's going on. Like, I'm timing this. And we get to the hospital and they set me up. They said, it looks like you're in labour. You need to go straight to labour suite. So they booked me a room. Obstetricians come in. And everyone's getting me settled. And obviously I'm going through. My contractions at that point came on really strong to every 4 minutes. So I went from nothing to every 4 minutes. And so trying to work through that pain and what's going on. And so they come, and I remember the midwife came in, and she was a young girl named Ella. And she walked in and she said, well, what a beautiful day to have a baby. And I said, I looked at her and I said, "Are you Christian?" And she was like, "Yes, I'm Christian." I'm like, "I am too." And when I went into labor that morning, it was so much of joy because I'm like, I love Easter. It's one of the biggest, the most memorable holidays or something of the year.
Yeah.
And when I got the first contraction, I woke my husband. I said, "Oh, it's Easter Sunday!" Like, wow. And so she came in and she said, "This is an amazing day to have a baby, and so let's get you settled." And she did the Doppler. And left the room. And then her midwife, or like her charge midwife, had come in and she said, "I'm just going to have a look for the baby." And I hadn't known anything was going on at the time because I'm trying to work through my contractions. And she kind of looked a little bit and left the room again, not telling me anything. And then my obstetrician had walked in about 5 minutes later. And when the obstetrician had walked in, I knew that the way they had planned me for it was that we get you settled, they do all the monitoring, and then the obstetrician will come in a little while after, like quite a while after that. So when she walked in, I immediately thought, "What's going on?" And she said, "Look, we're having a bit of difficulty finding the heartbeat with the two that's come in before. I'm just going to have a listen." And I still, the picture's so vivid in my mind. Like, I was on the bed and she pretty much went across my tummy. Like across, and then just put put it back on the stand and pull the sheet over me and said, "Michelle, your baby's dead." Like, that's what she said. And I remember looking at her and looking at my husband, and I was like, those words just didn't even make sense to me.
No.
And then I reacted with a scream and I said, "No, take him out, like take him out now, like take me to the theater." And I was just screaming stuff.
Yes.
And my mum was in the room with me, so mum was always planned to be at the birth with my husband, with Ray. So mum and Ray were in the room, and I said, "No, that can't be happening," because when I'd gone into labour that morning, I felt him move.
Right.
And so I said, obviously from the time I'd felt him move, I wasn't like counting movements. You're going with the flow. Yitsu first. You don't know.
Absolutely.
But I did know that I felt him move. So I said to her, "I don't believe you. Like, I do not believe you. That's it." And she was very blank, and she just waited for me and said, "There's nothing we can do," and then walked out of the room. And I don't, like, looking back, I don't even know like how I managed to get out of that picture.
Yes.
But I said to my mum and my husband, and my mum, she's a very faithful woman of God. She was like, "No, pray. And she kept praying. And Ray, I clearly remember him punching the door. Like, he was just, he could not take in what was happening. That was
too much.
That was not too much. Way too much. And so I said to the midwife had come back in, and I said to the midwife, "I want you to get me a sonographer because I want to see on that machine what's going on. Like, I want to see it." And she was like, "Look, it's quite early in the morning. It's 6 o'clock. They're changing shifts. We'll get you someone. It's going to take a while, but there's nothing that we can do." And I said, "I'm not believing you. Like, you go." And at the time, my mum had got a phone out and Ray had got his phone out and just started texting, my Ray's parents and siblings, and we've got a very strong knit Christian family.
Yes.
So everyone, and they started sending texts out for prayer. And I didn't believe it. I was like, whatever is going on, it's going to change.
Yeah.
Like, it is Resurrection Sunday. It is going to change in this room. And they'd come in, and so the sonographer had come in half an hour later. And I remember when he came in, he said, "Oh, do you," like, at that stage, our siblings had come in, our parents, my in-laws, the room was full of people.
Okay.
And he said, "Do you want everyone to go away?" And I said, "No, like, this is my family. You show me my baby on the screen." And I still remember him going on the screen, and I had so many scans before, the usual, what you're looking for. And I looked at him and he was scanning, and I thought, why is this guy focusing on the brain? Like, what is he doing? Because it was just still. And he'd go around, and I said, like, "Go to the heart." And he was like, "That is the heart." And that was like the realization of, it was just still. Like, there was just a baby still image on that screen. And he'd closed everything and went out, and the family's trying to process everything. And for me, the feeling of, it was still, I didn't believe it. I'd seen it. Like, I was clutching at every straw. This is not happening. No, this is not going to happen. And I started thinking, you grow up listening to all the stories of people being risen from the dead, or, miracles happen.
Yes.
You hear it happen. You've seen it happen.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not going to give up. This is not going to happen. And Ray, is a very, very calm person. Very calm. Like, he himself was like, "We're going to pray this. This is, like, we'll accept it at the end when that's what we have to deal with. But we're going to pray with this. And I had my father-in-law, who's a pastor, bringing the phone to me a couple times and saying, pastors from everywhere were praying. And it was a Sunday morning, so texts had gone out to people all over the place saying, pray, this is the news we've been given, but we will not believe it. We will, rely on God for that.
Yeah.
So it was for me and Ray in the room. So that was around 7 that we got the confirmation that this is it. And because I had already progressed to labour, so I was around 3 centimetres dilated.
Yeah, so were you still having contractions through this time?
I was. Yeah, so I'm having to, deal with the emotion going on through it while still trying to deal with the pain. And the obstetrician had come in and said, look, you are done. So then my next thought was, what happens? Like, I'm in labour, but there's, I couldn't, because I haven't done this before.
Yeah.
And I said, am I going to have a C-section? Because my mum didn't even understand. She'd never been in the situation before. And she said, no, look, because you're in labour, we're going to progress through labour. So that was the second realisation of, I'm going to have this baby.
Yeah.
And so they advised me to get the epidural because it was 7 a.m. and I was 3 centimetres dilated. They didn't know how long it would be. And the whole process was me birthing a baby that wasn't going to help himself by coming out. So I would have had to do all the work. And so they said, look, we think you should take the epidural. You should get enough rest through the day. And then when you, we'll keep giving you, they'll give me some oxytocin to speed things up. And when it might take a day, it might take 2 days, they're not too sure. But that's all I could do. And I remember them coming in, putting the epidural in, which at the time was quite calming because I was finding it hard to go through the contraction pain as well. And so they came in and they put the epidural and then they said, just relax, like just try to sleep, which is, And I remember in the room, I would fall asleep because I hadn't slept a lot that night. And whenever I'd woken up, I would feel like I was waking up from a dream back into my room. So I'd look for my room and then I wouldn't see that. I'd see Ray sitting next to me or Mum sitting next to me and just,
being hit with the reality of it.
Yeah, constantly. And you keep closing your eyes, hoping that when you open your eyes again, this is a bad nightmare. You're going to be like, whoa, that was scary, but this is not going to happen. And so eventually we prayed through the whole time in the room, and we had always planned to, Ray and I are big worshippers, so, Ray's on the worship team and I've done worship, so our hearts are full for worship. Yes. And we'd planned a list of music to be played in the room while I gave birth, and so we just kept that music going, and through the time we just prayed and prayed and prayed. And something happened in that room, because as the time went through the day, so Elijah was born at 5:30 that evening, so it was almost around 12 hours of just waiting. Yeah. But every time I'd woken up, the realization had hit me that, this is probably going to happen. This, it's like my hope was diminishing. Yeah. But my strength was picking up. Yeah. Wow. So I could tell something crazy was going on with me that I can't explain, but it's only God. Yeah. That I was actually physically becoming prepared to birth this baby. Wow. And I also had an excitement which I cannot explain. So, when I tell people this, they can't really fathom how could you be excited about giving birth. But I was, because I was going to meet the baby that was in my tummy for that long. Wow. Which was just amazing. So he was born at 5:30, which is quicker than they thought. Wow. I had an hour of active pushing, which at the time to me felt like forever. But for a stillbirth baby was amazing. Wow. I had no tears. And he just came down. So it was a supernatural birth that had happened in that room that day.
Wow. And then you, when you birth Elijah, do you get to hold him? Yes. How did that feel?
Yeah, so when I birthed him, I remember him coming out, and Mum was in the room and Ray was in the room, and we had the midwife would come in, the young midwife, and my obstetrician, and we all just cried. And he was actually born to the song "I Exalt Thee," which is a song I played a lot while I was pregnant, and it just happened to start playing at the time. I remember the song playing, and he was birthed, and I remember looking down, and they did everything that they would for a normal birth, which at the time I didn't know because it was my first baby.
Yes.
So he'd come out, he wasn't crying. Mum was just bawling her eyes out, which I later found out because she knew that he wasn't crying because he wasn't breathing. But for me, I had no idea,
Yeah.
So he came out and then they put him onto me as in skin to skin. I got to hold him and I remember looking at him and thinking, this boy is so beautiful. Like, look at him. I was like, Ray, that's your nose. That's my toes. Like,
Yeah.
And I was just celebrating this life that I was holding.
Wow.
And Ray got to hold him, and then Mum did. There was a lot of tears. There was a lot of sadness. But for me, I was sitting above everyone else with joy, which is so hard to explain. But you know that it was God that put that. He turned that moment of where I was probably the worst, looking back, the worst moment I've ever had to go through my life.
Yeah.
Still putting joy in it for having me to enjoy the birth of, Elijah. And the staff at the hospital just were totally amazing. They treated him like a baby he was handled with care.
Yeah.
I had his clothes set out that he was going to use. They dressed him up.
Wow.
At that point, I started to move into the realization hit us that this is it.
Yeah.
It's not, he's gone. And I struggled a bit with because I was crying and trying to dress him up, and it was so good that Mum was there. So Mum was an extension of me that was able to. She dressed him up and then got to cuddle him. The family got to come in the room and got to hold him. They brought the little bassinet that they usually sleep in. It had his name on it. It was just beautifully done. Like it wasn't like you've just had a baby. And so the first 2 hours of being in the labor suite with him was as if I was with the baby that that was alive.
Yeah.
So got to dress him up, got to cuddle him. I wanted to keep him, and the other thing they did was they moved me into a family room in Auckland Hospital has got this nice family room. They moved me into this family room, and I wanted to keep him for the night. I think a part of me still I knew that he was gone. But it's still your baby, and the excitement was overbearing the sadness I was feeling.
Yes.
So I was more in this the state of and it's also physically the emotions going on, right? Like you've got the hormones. You've still got the hormones, right?
Yeah.
So I still got all the oxytocin running through me. I'm still like, I'm a mom kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so my mum actually, so I was like, I'm going to keep him in here and keep him in the room. And they said to me, it might be better for us to take him away for the night, just so you could get rest. And we're just going to move him to the room next door. So the other thing I got worried about was, where are you going to take my baby?
Yes.
And they said, we're just going to move him to the room next door and keep him there for the night. And then we'll bring him back to you. As soon as you wake up, you can have him. And so I later found out the room next to the family room is called the Rose Room. It's actually a kitchen. And they just use ice packs from the freezer to keep them cold. So something you never think about, I had no idea.
And they didn't explain
it to me. And
yeah.
I think probably, looking back, if they had, I'd probably be like, no, he's not going in there. Because
they obviously left that out.
They said he's going to beautiful Rose Room. And you think, Rose Room, that's, he's going to be nursery somewhere. And I remember the next sleep was terrible that whole night, because then you responding to, you telling people what happened. People know you've gone into labor, because in the morning I text my girlfriends, I'm in labor. And so people are like, what's going on? Texting Ray, and so you having to send the messages out, this is what happened. And so there was no sleep. I remember taking a sleeping pill for a bit, going to sleep. And then in the morning I woke up and I said to Ray, let's get him back. That excitement kicked in again. And she was like, okay, we'll bring him to you. And when they brought him to me, he changed. Yeah. So obviously the 12 hours overnight, he looked quite different, and he was so ice. I remember going to carry him, and it was just like carrying an ice pack. And that's the realization of I just moved away, and I said, I just can't do this. What is going on?
Yeah.
And so they brought him, and then the family came in, and they said, that's when they said to us, he's going to change quite fast. His body's going to change, so just be prepared for that. Also, when Elijah was born, they didn't know what the reason was for what had happened.
Yeah, okay.
And when he was in my tummy, there was a lot of thinking it could be this, could be the placenta, could be this. But when he was born, they'd have a look at him to see how long they think it would be that he'd passed on. So if he had passed on quite close to when I'd given birth to him, then something would have happened at that point. And by looking at them, they can tell. And so when he was born, they said to me, do you want to do a post-mortem for him? Which is another daunting thing to think about.
Yeah.
But I remember at the time, because I work in a hospital myself, and I said to Ray, they're not going to hurt him by doing a post-mortem. He's passed on, but it'll help us find reasons of maybe what had happened, which they said to us, this could prevent something from happening. So then they said to us, so he was due to have a post-mortem 2 days later. So the family had come in and everyone had said bye to him. And I remember that, so it was Easter Monday that all of this is happening. And the social worker had come in, so the next day it's prepping me, I'm fine, I'm ready for discharge, what's happening with baby. And throughout the time of all of this happening, you're going through moments of, this is real, this is not, this is real, this is not, like we're in this is happening, this is not. And you don't forward think too much, so you're thinking like a minute from now, 2 minutes from now, and you're not thinking what happens, like where am I? And I remember the social worker coming in and she said to me, so have you're ready for discharge, you good, have you thought about what you're going to do with the baby? And I said, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean? And she was like, well, are you going to have a burial or a cremation? And that was the life that like,
whoa.
It was almost a pop of the bubble that you were in. It was like,
It was just, I remember looking at her and not saying anything.
Yeah.
And she said, look, we need to decide because it is your baby. What are you going to do? And no mum, no parent ever plans that for a child. Let alone someone who's going to the hospital to take your baby home. Like, I'd plan, take my baby home, do this parenting thing, get advice from friends. The bassinet was in the car. None of this, like, a funeral for a baby, like... And so I remember saying to her, like, are there options? Like, you... And she was a very... straightforward, I guess. Not the best person for the job, I would say, looking back.
All right, come on, hospital. Let's
so that was a little... So she said, it comes down to cost. Like, do you want to have a funeral for him? Because that's obviously more costly. Do you want to have a... and one thing they did say that still bugs me up until today, and I think it is an option available, and some mums do take it because you have to take it at the point, you don't think about it, was... There is an option if you can't afford to do a private cremation or you can't afford to do a funeral, that you could send the baby away to be cremated with other babies that were, and you get a portion of the ashes. And she said, look, this is how the hospital can take care of it if that's what you want.
Wow.
And I was stunned. And she said, and then it depends, like, and then I realized it's actually like an adult funeral, like where the plot you go to, and we new to New Zealand, so we've never lost a family member. I don't know any burial plots, and I think I just broke. I just lost it, and I said to her, I want you out of the room, like I want you to get out. And I said to Ray, look, this is a member of my family. This is our son.
Yeah.
I want a funeral for him. I want a funeral car for him. I want him to go to a funeral home. I want him to be dressed the best he can. And I want a funeral. And Ray said to me, where do you want him to... And I said, I want him to be buried because we will be going there.
Yeah.
And he said, where do you want him to? And I said, I want you to find somewhere around the city because he's born at Auckland Hospital in the city. We spend so much of our time in the city for appointments. I work there. Now go out. Do not ask me about money.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even want to know how much this costs. This is what I want for my boy, and come back when you guys are sorted.
Yeah.
And that's all I said, because I'd lost it.
Yeah.
And, family friends and my father-in-law and my dad, they all got together, and that's exactly what Elijah got, he went to a funeral home. He went to a funeral home close to where I live, like all the way to Howick. God just put things in place and people in place that just took care of it so well. Like, looking back now, that God was fully in control of everything that was going on, and I can say that was God, and that was God.
Yeah.
I struggled with having to see it change all the time because it just kept hitting me. And I remember at the funeral home, my mom said to me, I think it might be better if you said goodbye to him, because, I didn't want to remember him in that way.
Yeah.
But for me, there I was like, who's going to dress my baby up? And mum went, mum and dad was amazing. So mum went and actually put on his clothes, took photos for me, which I never asked for, but I treasure to this day.
Yeah.
Wow.
Took photos, sat with him, sang with him, and just knowing that, like, you know, it made me know that he had the perfect send-off. We had a funeral service for him. We played I Exalt Thee when his coffin came in. He had I remember him having a car with like flowers and coffin. He had the most beautiful send-off. And we managed to do, all of that for him. So,
It was such an amazing thing that you as a mother knew, no, this is what I want and this is what's going to happen. And that God gave you the calmness to be able to express that. And although you knew that it was too much, he gave you that peace to be able to say, this is what we need, this is, and he pulled people together. And
that is, I think unless you know, we've had a family friend who's gone through something similar recently, and I think, you know, you try and put yourself in your position, but I think unless you have journeyed that, you have no idea that pain. You know, and I guess like for you, you're in that moment, and it's always, as you say, you're in that bubble of kind of trying. It's the first, obviously, time it's ever happened, so you're processing things you've never processed before.
Never.
And you've got the days go by, and the weeks go by, and the months go by. What was it like in those months after? Obviously, as you say, you've got to tell people about it. You've got to, you know, let people know what's happened.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts? And
so I break it down into, for me, it was I can look back at the days, then the weeks, and then the months, because it changed. Obviously, the first few days, it was, the best way to describe it was I felt like, you know, you watch these movies where someone's body is being taken up, like their soul's been taken up, and they look down and they see what's happening, and that's exactly how I felt. Like I was watching this drama unfold from above with nothing that I could do. And it was kind of going through the motions of then planning the funeral and telling people was really hard, because you'd send this text. I remember emailing and texting people with, we are delighted to announce, you know, that we've had Elijah Samuel, but sadly, and that's how the message went around. And I can imagine people on the other side, you know, when you have a friend or a family member having a baby and you're just waiting like, what's going on? And reading this. And so we had to let a lot of people know, and then people let people know. And we waited for his body to come up. The funeral service was a few days later, that it was sitting and writing tributes to him. And we decided that, Ray and I decided, because Ray's quite a private person as well. And
that's hard for him.
So it was really hard for him. I'm more of the extrovert, he's more the introvert. So we decided between us that we would have a private funeral with just the family that had been there, which we did. So it was all the siblings, and everyone had written messages, and we'd had a funeral, like the bulletin printed out with pictures. It was just beautiful. And you know, prayers and tributes and all of that. And so for the first few days, you're going through the motions of all of that, you know, doing that. And for me, it was also the physical recovery, because I'd just given birth. So, you know, I'd still have the postpartum bleeding. I remember on day 3, the day before his funeral, my friend had texted saying, I just want you to know you're going to get the baby blues. And I was like, I don't have my baby, you know. And she was like, no, the hormones are gonna, and you do feel it. Like with the other kids, it made me realize more what it actually, you know, physics sells. So you're dealing with grief as an emotion, but you also have the hormones going through your body that's causing all sorts of emotions, you know.
After you give
exactly.
birth,
so I'm going through all of that physically, but there's no baby, and so it's a really weird feeling. I still had the postpartum midwife visiting, and I remember she'd just come and just cry. She was also, God had also placed a Christian midwife there by chance, you know, someone who dealt with it before as well. So she'd come in, and, you know, she still had to check me. She still had to make sure for 6 weeks I was fine. And so she'd come. So the first few days was really hard, like going through all of that, and, you know, just keep getting flowers, and every time someone would come to visit, retelling the story, or and that. And just to retrace back as well, Elijah's name is very symbolic for us as well. So we had a list of names that we'd chosen, about 5 names, and we always like them to come out and be like, oh, this name kind of suits you, you know. And when they told us, they said, are you going to name him? And I was like, yes, I am. And I said to Ray, you name him. Like, I've always had, like, this is the name I like. But I was like, you know, you name him. And he came to me and he said, babe, I really feel strongly he should be named Elijah, because in the Bible, Elijah was just taken up, and this is kind of what's happening to us right now. And I want his name to be, you know, Samuel, the kid that was dedicated in the temple. And so his name is so symbolic to us, Elijah Samuel. And so those first few days, it was telling people what was going on. And people don't really know how to, you know, it's at the time going through it, it was dealing with grief, but also being hurt by a lot of things people would say, or the way they'd react. Someone who had gone through pregnancy with you, who you'd think was a good friend, wouldn't even text you. But stepping back now, you realize people just don't know how to do it. Griefs, you know, like, I'm trying to find ways to navigate through this new crazy thing that's just happened. How else is, you know, someone... And that's why I feel talking about it is so important, because you equip people on how to deal with this with other people. And so at the time I was getting quite hurt by things people would say, or people would like try to find the reason, like, did you check for movements, or did you... And my brain was all fuzzled, and I was like, you know, is there something that I did? So those first few days were really, really hard. And then when the funeral happens and, you know, people kind of go back to their lives, then it's the reality that sinks in. So... It was hard for me because for the last 9 months, and I love kids. I think I wanted kids since I was like 16. Yeah. Being a mum has always been my ultimate dream. And so then being, you know, a mum, but not actually having a baby, I almost felt like I was cheating the system in a way. Like, I was not really a mum, but no, I am. And it was the days that went by, and Elijah was born, and 3 weeks later was Mother's Day. And I remember that was such a hard... I said to Ray, I cannot be in Auckland. Like, we just need to get away. And I remember my mum coming to me and saying, you know, Happy Mother's Day. Which, it's just the acknowledgement, you know. They're like, you are a mum. And so the months that went by was just... all of that, like, you know, the feeling like I'm a mum but I'm not a mum was a big struggle for me. I wasn't getting up with a newborn, but I had a baby, like, you know, like, trying to acknowledge that. And I think what we had plan A. You know, we were going to go into the hospital, have a baby. I was on maternity leave. This was plan A. And the few months later was trying to find plan B, which was the hard part. I was on leave for a year, but no, like, what happens with that? Do I go back to work? And then it's facing people, explaining your story over and over. I birthed in Auckland Hospital, and I work in Auckland Hospital. So going back to work was quite a struggle for me. I remember... After 3 months, I thought, have to go back, have to get back to normal life, as normal as you can. And going up to the ward and having the biggest panic attack, the lift opening, and all I could see was me 3 months ago. So I had all of that to deal with. But during that time, about 2 weeks after Elijah had passed, you know, I've grown up in a Christian home, so, you know, when you die, you go to heaven. And heaven's a certain thing. But you start to dig really deep when you know that your most precious is somewhere where you want to be. So I started to really, like, think about heaven and what's he doing, and started to search. And I just dug into the Word of God like you would never believe. Like, just read books, read about stillbirths, read about what happens with babies. And I think God was just strengthening my heart, strengthening me to go to... So even when I went to work, which before I got there, I thought it's going to be the most daunting. There's no way I could actually deal with this. God had already planned my heart, so I was actually entering with joy. Like, I've had a baby, and I'm sure people look at me and think, she's crazy, you know, but it's God that had done that. And so, so it was just, it's such a, like, you know, grief is, you go through you learn about the stages of grief. I learned it at uni, and you think, oh yeah. but it's actually, that's what you go through, like the denial and then the trying to take it all in. So the days and the weeks and the months were just like, how do we move to plan B with what do we do? Like what's in it for us? And there's a lot of blame. Yeah. So when I got the news, you blame yourself. Yeah. So what have I done wrong? What have I eaten? What have I not done?
Yeah, just about to ask, did you blame your body?
Definitely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
The baby's in you. You taking care of this precious life in you. And so I think it's quite normal to blame yourself. Like, what have I done? Yeah. What did I do or could have done? Yeah. And although the blame was so strong at the time, it's still something that I struggle with constantly, the blame, you know. I would sometimes now find out about someone who would say, oh, I thought something was weird, so I went to the hospital and then they found this was happening and they took baby out. And I would go to Ray, should I have done that? Like, and he would be like, no, you know, you need to understand that this is our story.
Yeah. So, you know, months after, it's that whole process of, do we try for more kids? Yeah. Do we go down that path? Is this not for us? Is this it? You know, and I can imagine that would have been big thoughts for you guys, or it may have been an easy decision, like absolutely not. We're having more. This is. Yeah. So what was that? What was it like for you in that? I guess courage to have more and.
Yeah, for me, at the time, losing Elijah, I think it was only about 3 weeks when we had the conversation and I said, we're going to have more. Like I was pretty sure. Wow. Because for the first reason, I want to be back on that road again of, you know, having a baby. I almost wanted it to be made right, you know, like and be given what I was told I'd be given or what's mine.
What you grew.
You know, like, so it was like getting the prize. Yeah. So I was like, we're going to do this. But at the same time, having all the fears surround it, like, you know, this could happen. And through the journey of the first few months of going through the loss, we did have a lot of blame ourselves, blame God. There was so much of anger towards God at the time. We was like, you know, we were worshipping God. We prayed for this baby. Why us?
We did everything.
Why? Why?
You've been faithful.
We were faithful, you know. We were at church. Like, we had plans for this baby to be at church, you know. Like, we prayed over him. The morning that I went into labor, my mom, dad, we all stood around me and prayed. Why God? Why me? Why us? Like, and so we had a lot of questions for God, a lot of, and during that time of me praying through that, like I felt like God had robbed me of what was mine. Like, you know, like, why did you take what was mine? And God said to me, like, I chose you as a vessel to carry what is mine.
Wow. See,
and that was a massive realization for me that, you know, like, it was almost a realization and a thank you, God, for choosing me to carry
He knew
this
you could
baby.
do it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I changed from a why did you take what is mine to God, I will carry what is yours because I am just the vessel. And so that helped us to move forward. And Ray and I had the conversation that, you know, there's a chance that it could happen. Once you experience loss, it opens up a whole new world of things do happen. Right. Bad things do happen to good people as well. Bad things can happen to anyone, even if, you know. And so we knew that when we take the journey again, there's going to be all the fear, but there could also be the loss again. And we were happy to go through that journey. I'm generally a very determined person, and when I set my mind through something, I would not like, that's just me. Yeah. And this was one of the things I was like, I know it's going to, and I remember meeting the obstetrician and saying, when can we try? And she was like, and God had also prepared that as well, and he knows my heart, he knows Ray's heart, because at the time, if we had gone for a C-section, we would have to wait 18 months to 2 years to try again. But because I had birthed it naturally, it was pretty much I could try as soon as I wanted to, which was already God knowing our hearts and what, you know, what we were. So I actually got pregnant with Zachary 3 months after to the date. So 3 months later, I was back in. So we lost him.
We're really like, we're getting it here. Ray, come here.
And it was it was such a special time as well, because on Ray's birthday is in September. And that year, September and Father's Day was falling on the same day.
Wow.
And I remember, like, you know when you get pregnant and you know the baby's date and you start planning, you know the first
Yeah.
Christmas. Like,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
mum's, right?
Yeah.
From the test, you're like, this is when the baby's born.
Yes.
This is your
Yes.
birthday. This is my birthday. This is what
Yeah.
we're going to be doing. And so when we knew he was due in April, and I was like, oh, Father's Day, and, you know, you're going to have your baby for Father's Day. And so then we'd lost him. And I'd been like, well, you know, Ray, it's his birthday, it's Father's Day, it's like the worst, like it's going to be so hard.
Yeah.
And I'd found out the night before Father's Day that I was pregnant again, which was amazing. Like
The night before.
So the night before,
my
I started
God,
feeling
Michelle.
sick. So
That's
we were
the
like,
best.
let's try for baby. No, not like, you know, like checking dates or whatever. Let's just, if it happens. The Sunday was Father's Day and his birthday, and the Saturday I just started to feel really sick, and I'm like, I'm just gonna test without telling him, and I tested, and I was like, oh God, like you just, you know, you knew like
Yeah.
this day was gonna be bad. And so on the morning of his birthday / Father's Day, I used the blanket that we used to wrap Elijah, and I said, oh, we're gonna celebrate your first Father's Day anyway, like acknowledging your dad. So I'm just gonna bring the teddy that we had for Elijah and Elijah's blanket, and I made him breakfast in bed, and then we're sitting there and the sticker, and he was like, I don't get what's going on. And I was like, we're having another one. It was an amazing
that day.
moment,
That moment.
amazing moment. And we also got to extend that further to the granddads who, you know, had lost, because this Elijah's the first grandchild on both sides.
Wow.
So going to see them for lunch and for dinner and being like, you know, there's another baby coming. So turning that whole day into such joy. But we knew that it was going to be a hard journey. Like we knew that it was going to be a lot of prayer, a lot of support, a day by day thing. I think when you're first pregnant and you haven't experienced anything, your milestones are, you know, 12 weeks. I remember going for 12 weeks again, everything's fine, we're sweet. 20 weeks, we're on the road to, like, you know, you don't think anything can go wrong.
Yeah.
Whereas when you've had loss, every week is
Every
like,
week is,
and we knew that, but we
Yeah.
decided to go through that journey. Yeah.
Wow. I had a question down here. What are some of the questions that you ask God after? But I think we've kind of touched on that. Another one that we have is, how did you stay faithful in the storm? But I guess what are some practical things that someone's journeying something? We have loss and we experience pain, and it isn't nice, and it feels sickening, and it is very real and confronting. And what's something that you practically do to stay faithful, whether it's you've got got a song like I'll exalt you that brings you comfort, and you know, like, but what's something that you do that someone with faith or doesn't have faith can practically do?
I guess, for me at the time when we're going through it, obviously you lose a lot of your faith. You go through, like, you know, you lose faith in everything around you. Like, I questioned everything from, like, my career, my marriage, my everything was just shaken. It wasn't just losing a baby. Pretty much turned my world upside down. And what I would usually do is pray or, you know, like, ask God. Couldn't do that because couldn't even talk to God. Didn't even, you know. So I had to look for other ways of helping me stay grounded in a way. I listen to music, so, like, I love music, and even putting on that was like, oh, I don't want to listen to this, but I play it in the background, so I would put it on, and somehow through the day it would minister to me. Also, I think it's really important for finding support networks, because you yourself, you cannot rely on yourself to be strong all the time, especially going through pain that's going to break you. But finding your support networks is so important. And not people that, you know, you have to go explain, but people that just know. So for me, having Ray there was just, you know, saying to him, I can't do it, and I don't have to say anything else, and he would just, like, pray over me or be there to support me. We had amazing Christian friends that went through the journey with us that would just listen. You know, I found lots of healing by talking about him, and lots of healing from people acknowledging him. So, you know, like, people saying to me, oh, Elijah would have been a month. and talking about that, like what would he have been. So I found that quite helpful. And then having people, sometimes people don't know how to respond to that, but just not saying anything and listening is just amazing.
Yeah.
So just being that friend that's just like, I don't know what to do for you, but I'm going to sit here and just be there with you.
Amazing.
So I guess that sort of stuff. I also found when I was going through it, because it's such a rare thing, it's not really spoken about. It's not actually rare, but people, keep it a lot of hush-hush.
Yeah.
I wanted to see what other women had done that had gone through that. So I started searching the internet for groups. I started looking for people that knew people that could get me in contact with people. And I remember I clearly remember a point, we just joined Life Church at the time as well, which was amazing. And someone said to me, I said a bit of our journey, and there was a girl singing on the worship team, and they were like, oh, she's gone through the same thing a few years ago, and she's got 4 kids. And all I heard was, she's got 4 kids. Like, you hold on to that. Like, wow, like she's got 4 kids. Like, she's done it. So it's just, doing what makes you know that you can come through it. So seeing other people that have gone through that, it helped me, to know that, you've walked that journey, but look at you, I could be that. So that was quite helpful for me.
That's amazing. How do you honour and celebrate Elijah now in your family?
Yeah, so Elijah's a very special part of our family. It's really exciting watching the kids really acknowledge him now. So Zachary, who's our oldest, would always tell people, I have an older brother and his name is Elijah. And sometimes I've got to get in there and explain it a bit, because some kids are like, where is he? Don't understand.
Yes.
But he was actually buried at Pereira Cemetery.
Oh, yeah, beautiful.
In St. John's, and that's just a special place for us.
It's a beautiful place.
It's so beautiful. Like, I couldn't have chosen a more perfect place for him, the trees, and you sit there, and just the calming that you feel when you're there. So we acknowledge that his birthday, so 5th of April is his birthday. We celebrate him. We get a cake. We put candles on it. We've done it initially on our own, and now the kids are getting involved in it. So we would celebrate. We lit off balloons. We've got the kids last year to, they can now write him letters. They can write him cards. Our Christmas decorations went up, and his stocking goes up, which we fill with stuff and then take it to the cemetery. We always talking about him. We always, let him know. As they get older, we'll explain more. But they very well at understanding that Elijah was in mommy's tummy and he's gone straight to be with Jesus. So they'll say, he's with Jesus. And so very much spoken about. Like, we've got prints in our house. We've done castings of him from baby loss, and we've got that displayed in our house. We've put pictures of him. I keep pictures on my phone of him. So he's very, very well recognized in our house. He's one of his name goes on cards that we write to people at Christmas, Angel Elijah is what we call him. And so he's very acknowledged, and we spend time. So his birthday, our birthdays, Christmas Day, our family activity is church, and then the cemetery where we, go. And it's so nice seeing the boys get really involved. Like, they choose, it's so cute. So they choose toys for him, like, he'd like this, and it's usually what they would like, which is quite cute, which again makes me always, I look at them and I think, I wonder what he would have been like, because my 2 boys are so different. One's like, really academic, one's really sporty, and I'm like, what would he have been like? But just they drew at Kindy, they'll draw family pictures and they'll put him up in the sky, which is really cute.
My goodness, it's amazing. And amazing for them to be involved, as kids. I think as parents, you kind of feel like you want to try and protect them and the understanding, and I think it's really important for them to be on this journey with you guys and understand that this is life.
Exactly.
And, there is a heaven, and I guess
heaven,
you think they're little and they can't process that, but they can process that.
They can process so much more than we think they can. Yeah, like even explaining, it actually brings some healing as well.
Yeah,
the days when, like Christmas is always a hard day for us, or like watching them play with kids that are similar to his age. I see them and I think, I actually have these 3 boys. It's just that I never see them play like this with the one that's not here. But seeing them, so it actually makes me feel so excited, like, and they're so open about it and so loving about it. And it's just, it's amazing. I wouldn't feel right the other way, you know. In saying that, everyone's journey is so different, and I fully acknowledge that, like I've met women in all walks of life, so I've made myself very available for women to contact me or let me know friends, and And everyone goes through grief differently and journeys through it differently. So whereas I might be quite open, someone might feel more introverted.
Yes.
And Ray, for example, himself, is very more private. Yes. So I would post about Elijah on Facebook. He's not that type of guy.
No.
And I acknowledge that other mums might be like that too, you know. But for us, it's just so nice to celebrate him and his birthday and, you know, like all of that stuff. So
you sound like the most amazing mum.
Yeah, you
and
do.
Those kids that are here with you on earth are so privileged, as well as Elijah. And I really think that it's so comforting to know he's in such a beautiful place.
Yeah.
And I trust he's in a beautiful place, and I trust that he is having all that he needs, which is what God promises us. And it is so humbling to hear you speak about hardship with such joy and hope. And I know that you'll have days where it's too much still. And there'll be moments where you're lighting those candles on his birthday or Christmas Day and it's too much. And I acknowledge that. And I know that this is something that you'll journey forever. And you're inspiring. And I am like so, as a mum of 3 healthy children, and I've never experienced that, I wouldn't wish that upon anybody. But you're the person for the job, and you're going to show other women how to navigate it with such grace and understanding and empathy that I'll never be able to bring as a mum. So thank you for being such an incredible vessel, and God knows that we need people like you here on earth. And you have some big honourings when God comes, Jesus comes here, man, he's going to bless you. And I pray for favour over your journey as a mother, continuing with your new little baby who's 8 months old. She's so beautiful, I bet. And I just pray for favour over your family and a new level of understanding and more to come for you guys, and more wholeness to come, more than you've ever felt this far. And I really believe that for you. So you've navigated all of this. We here at Human As love to thank people and love to acknowledge that we can't do it alone. And we have our faith. A lot of people that come here have faith, and that's so amazing. But we also have people here on earth to help us and guide us and speak life into us. So is there someone that you would love to thank today? And we're going to look into this camera over here. And now is your chance to just thank them.
Oh, wow. Well, there's been so many different people that have influenced our journey. And I think for me particularly, I'd like to take this opportunity to say a big thank you to my husband Ray for all that he's done in helping me to deal with this journey. He's been my strength. He's helped me find my strength in God. We've gone through 3 more kids, and there's been times in those pregnancies where he's had to stand next to me and just hold my hand and just let me know that it's going to be okay. And he's done that with such calmness, such strength, always encouraging me. I remember the times when we were having Zachary and he would sing worship songs to my tummy when I felt weak or when I was scared. So this goes out to you, babe. I just want to thank you for being my pillar of strength. God really blessed me when he brought you into my life, and he knew that this journey would be made better by having you by my side and you to take me through. So I want to thank you for the 4 beautiful kids you've given me. And I just want to thank you for being, our strength in every aspect of the word, whether it's emotionally, financially. You've just been the pillar in our family, and you've just been my everything. So I just love you so much, and I couldn't imagine having anyone else by my side but you. I love you so much.
I had time.
Oh, boy.